Welcome back, everyone. We are now basically completed in terms of our data creation. So this is still the calendar report that we were looking at earlier. Now it's time to actually create some visuals. So let's move over to the report view by selecting this icon there. And what we want to do now is that we want to actually start selecting the fields that we want to actually visualize. So to begin with, what we do is that we come over here to workday. All right, you see this workday here. So select this, and ideally it will get pushed to the values. Values is basically the data that we want to plot. Okay, so that's the important part to keep in mind. So as we select workdays, it get pushed to the values. So that's the first part. Of course, you can actually drag and drop as well. That will do the trick in terms of controlling where it goes. So what is it that we are looking at here? So let's make this a little bit larger so that we can actually see it clearly. We can always reduce that a bit later. So what you can see here is that there's no label for x-axis because there's only one value here. What you can see here is the workday. It tells you the number of workday in aggregate, in totality of the 10 years that we're looking at. So if I mouse over, it shows you there are 2,609 work days for that 10 years, that date range that we have selected. Now this is useful to some extent if you are interested in the 10 years, the number of work days in 10 years. To an extent, yeah, maybe, but ultimately we might want to actually have a little bit more granularity to it. So the one way is to look at it from year perspective. So we can actually select the year itself. That's one way, but the only problem is that year get pushed to the values as well. So what we actually ideally prefer is to have years as the x-axis. All right, so basically 2001 or 2000, yeah, I think we started with 2010, right? 2010, 2011, 2012, and it shows the number of workday per year. So in order to do that, we need to actually shift our year over to the axis. So this part is the axis. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind, whereby this is of course the values. Not quite the same as how we usually think of it in math. You always call this x-axis, and this part the y-axis. Of course, in this case, we have to follow the so-called nomenclature of Power BI. So this is one way to plot this, and if you look at it, it's roughly about the same, right? I mean, it's roughly about 260 work days in a year, so that's not very interesting. The other way that we can look at it is look at it from monthly perspective. So let's have a look at it from monthly perspective. Okay, now the month is being put into the legend. Well, yeah, this is quite useful. You can actually see this is 2010, and the various month and the number of work days per month. And there's always a dip here. Looks like February has basically the least number of work days. And this is one way to visualize it, if that is what you intend to present. What I want to do though is just drag the month here and remove the year. And now you can see that the number of work days on the monthly basis. There's only one catch. When you look at this, the sequence is not very useful. Typically, we want to look at the month from the perspective of January, February, in chronological order. What you have here is that it is presented in a descending order. The month with the largest or highest number of work day of the last 10 years, in descending order with the February with the least number of work days. So how do you actually overcome this issue? What you can do is come over to these three dots here. I think it's also called eclipse. Notice that the pop-up, the so-called tips here, tooltip or hint that pop out is here that says more options. So click that. Instead of sorting by descending order, sort by ascending order. All right, so that is slightly better, but not that much better, because we really want to actually sort it ascendingly, not by values. Okay, right now it's sorting by this. We want it to be sorting by axis. So we come over here. There's actually an option here which allows you to choose what to sort this table or this chart by. We notice that workday is being selected. So what we really want to do is actually change it to month by the text. And month by the text isn't that handy or isn't that useful, because notice that it is in alphabetical order. That is also not very useful either. So what do we do now? We seem to have run out of option in terms of making our choice. So one more thing in terms of the trick here is to come over here to the month text, which is this one here that we dragged into axis earlier. Notice that there is actually select. You can select this option, and notice that some of the contextualized tools start to pop out. Notice that right now column tools is being selected. Okay, and at this point there is this option here that you can actually choose to sort by which column, and drop down, and you can actually sort this by all the other fields that's within the date table itself. So in this case, we really want to sort by the month's number, January being 1, February being 2, on and on it goes until December, which is 12. And that is a better way to sort, because if you sort by the name of the month, it's going to start with A, and look, if you look at the chart itself, April is the first and August is the second. This doesn't make any sense at all, and that's not how you want to present this to anyone. So you can select month number, then it becomes sequential based on the sequence that how a month comes. Okay, so 1 being January, 2 being February. Let's select that and see what happened. Wait for that to be refreshed. Okay, and now what you can see is that in terms of the chart, it is exactly the way we want it. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all the way until December. It is exactly the way that we want to create this. With that, I'm going to stop. We will do a little bit more tidying up, formatting, all of that with this chart. But this portion here really is to actually get you started in terms of selecting the visuals and creating visuals. Just do a quick recap of what we've done. We've selected the report view, then we selected workday, the number of work days, and we also selected the month text, okay, to be in the axis itself, which is to be displayed in the axis itself. Previously we did use years, but ultimately month is actually what we want to drive down to, assuming and depending on your situation, you may find that it's much more appropriate to use year rather than month. And after that, we find that we need to actually sequence the axis itself, and we find that using purely this option here, either ascending or descending, using the two field that we've selected is insufficient. So we have to actually come over here, select the actual field itself. First thing is, before you select here, you have to actually select the chart, then you actually select the actual value or the field itself before you're making a choice in terms of sorting by which column. With that, I thank you for watching this. I hope that you found it useful to get you started. Of course, there's so much more to talk about. You don't necessarily need to choose this chart. This is just a default chart that Power BI select for you. There are a whole lot of options for you to choose from. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.